Hi traders, welcome to this video with me, 𝖢𝖥𝖣yi, Senior Market Analyst here at Blueberry Markets. In this video, we're going to be discussing the Asia trading range and how we could potentially trade it in a little bit more detail. I did a short video on this a couple of weeks ago and I had a lot of comments asking to do a bit more of a detailed look into this. So this is what I'm bringing you today. But first of all, what session do you trade the most? I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to know what session is your trading session. Also lets me know kind of what part of the world you're from. In the UK, I'm very blessed. We get to have two high volume trading sessions throughout the day. That tends to be the European and the US session. So let me know what session you trade the most, maybe even what FX or currency pair you trade the most. So what we're going to be looking at today essentially is the Asia trading range, and I say the Asia trading range because that's where we're going to focus a lot of our detail. If the Asia session has been sort of trending, not really want to take notice of that. I only want to notice what's going on in the Asia session if there is a range. But let's just have a little bit of details. There are three major trading sessions throughout a day. We have the Asia trading session, the European trading session, and the North American session. These are also known as Tokyo session, London session, and the New York session. You'll see that a lot of charts and a lot of especially sort of indicators are built off of the sort of New York session. Typically that is because the New York used to be the one that got the most volume, but actually London session is the one with the most volume at the moment. If you look at any kind of aggregate of pip movement, then London is actually one of the best at the moment. Volumes can be higher on the crossover of these time zones. So as we go into sort of the Tokyo, into the London session, into the New York session, we can see those types of volumes increase massively at those points. Now, when are we looking at this then? So for me, I'm based in the UK, so British summertime run at the moment. The Asia session is typically between 1 a.m. for me until sort of 7 a.m. when Frankfurt opens. That's where I kind of time my Asia session from, but that is 12 a.m. GMT, which marks the start of the Asia session. And around 20% of all Forex trading volume actually takes place during the Asia session. This is why I think it's quite an important session to have a little look at, because essentially it starts your trading day, especially for me being in the UK, it starts my trading day. And like I said, London actually is the most volume driven session at the moment. And so it's going to be important to see if you're going into London session, what's happened beforehand? How can we make decisions on the back of that, essentially? Going on to some trading strategies then, because that's what we're here for. We're here to know a trading strategy. Now, what I like to look at the most in the markets is consolidations. To me, consolidations bring volume into the market, and that's why I only want to look at ranges, okay? So let's say you have sort of types of the Asia session, Asia session between, so here this is an indicator that shows you the Asian session on the chart, and then it gives you me the high and the low and things like that. But essentially what we've got here is an Asia range where we've been trending but not necessarily aggressively, and I'll go and talk about that on a chart in a moment. But essentially what we've got is this high and the low of the Asian range, okay? So this is between that period of time. We have formed a high here, a low here. The orange line is just a midpoint, but we don't really need to focus too much on that. And the strategy is going to come when price breaks out of this range and then it continues to be directional for the most of the day. Now, obviously, we don't know whether it's going to be directional at this point, but we can have a few clues, okay? So what I mean by that is typically if the Asia session has been range bound and the market is in a low range. What I mean by a low range is the sort of average true range, let's say the ATR, okay, so the average true range which measures the Asia range, let's say it's very low. And what I mean by that is, let's say it's something like euro dollar and it's like 10 pips, okay? If the consolidation within the Asia session has been quite shallow, then often it can lead to large breakouts. If we have an ATR that's quite high and we have an Asia session which is sort of higher in range between the high and the low, and the market has been more sort of trend bound within that, then the breakout is usually a little bit more muted, okay, usually. So let's flip over to a chart now, and I'll just show you that, and I'll show you how to kind of get this on your MT5 chart as well. So I've opened up MT5, and this is what I'm presented with. I've got a pound US dollar chart here. Now the first thing you really want to do is set up your period separator. So you want to click Control Y on your keyboard. It brings these dotted lines. That just shows me where the market closes and opens, okay, at the end of every day. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to look for the Asia range. So for me on this particular chart, MetaTrader kind of puts you back a couple of hours depending on your time zone. So you're going to have to check this. But for me, if I go and highlight sort of 3 a.m. on the chart there, that's actually 1 a.m. for me. And if I go to 9 o'clock, that is 7 a.m. That to me is the Asia trading range, okay? And what I look to do then is map out the high of the Asia range, okay? Just using a sort of box tool or horizontal tool you can do that with, and then I go and look for the low of the Asia range, okay? And this allows me to understand how the market has been trading within the Asia sessions, okay? So this is the Asia session in here, okay? And that's all I'm looking to do. I'm looking to see how the market has shaped up within that area, okay? So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, and we're going to go back, and I'm going to try and find a point where there's been a very shallow trading range, okay? So here we have, let me just delete these lines a second. Here we have a really good example of that. So if I grab the vertical line and just go again from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. there, okay? Then I'm going to mark in the high and the low. Now, the reason why I could tell that off the back of just looking at the chart is because I'm looking essentially in the first sort of quarter of that chart, and I'm looking to see how the market has performed. And I can see here we've had quite a shallow trading range. So what I mean by that is that's around about 15 pips, okay? So if I go to this one as well, that's around 15 pips. So it seems to be, if we get a range on pound US dollar, sorry, of 15 pips, then we've got a sort of shallow trading range there. Now, what typically happens with a small trading range within the Asia session is that we can see continuations or breakouts of that if price comes to one side or the other. So essentially what you want to try and do is identify the high and low, and what you can look to do is potentially buy on the breakout. So let's say this candle here closes above the zone. It's actually this white one I'm trying to point at there. You could put a buy stop order below the low. You could put your stop loss below the Asia range there. So you've got around about, on this occasion, probably around about a 20 pip stop loss. And then all you can do is look for either a 1-to-1 risk reward, or you could look for a 2-to-1, look for a 3-to-1, whatever you want to look for. Or you could even look for a 0.5%, because if you're looking at doing this every single day, you might want to try and develop a strategy where you get something out of the market every day, okay? So that's what you could be looking for, essentially, looking for a breakout of the Asia range. But one thing to note is look for a very tight trading range. So if I go and have a little look at one that's been a little bit expansive, so let's say here, for instance, and I'll go and put on the Asia range, so from, again, 3, and we're going to copy that up and go to 9. Remember, that is actually 1 till 7 for me. It's just the MetaTrader, how MetaTrader works. If I then plot the low and then plot the high, let me just actually move this out a little bit so I can see where the high is. Plot the high there. We can see that that is our Asia range in here. So it's been quite expansive. It's been quite trend bound, and it has done 36 pips. Now, if I look at the day, what's happened, price has pretty much stayed within that Asia range, right? I haven't really kind of gone outside of that. There'll be rare occasions where it does, and it does continue to trend. That's mainly can be down to sort of news-driven events and stuff. But a large majority of the time, if you get a sort of very sort of large movement within the Asia range, what I'm going to do actually is just put the let's not bother with that. But essentially, you can see that the market stays within that Asia range. So what I really want to try and look for are ranges where it's been predominantly range bound. Okay, so ranges where the Asia session has been range bound. And again, we've got a really nice example of this here. If I go to 3, this will be the last example, till 9 there, we can see that we have a low in here, a high in there. And you can see that this range in particular was about 14, 15 pips. So if you can get an Asia trading session that has a range of around 15 pips or so on pound US dollar, then a lot of the times it can lead to a breakout. So go and have a little test of that. Have a little go at it. Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll speak to you in the next video.